one of the coolest shots I ever made from myself when I was probably about 14. I had my dad's old Marlin bolt action 22. I shot in the standing, I shot a squirrel off a rocket like 110 yards. That's still one of my coolest shots.
Well, I think it's important we point out what one of the big purposes of these shooting courses is to help individuals understand the margin of error in their system and themselves and establish what their ethical range is.
And it's a reassurance, right? I mean, it builds your confidence, and if you don't have confidence, which I've ran into that issue, a few times, between changing guns and figuring out shooting positions and second-guessing yourself.
Well, and so to take it back to the car analogies for a second, yeah, maybe your, custom competition setup is a Rolls Royce, but man, that AllTerra Mountain Shadow Carbon is a G-Wagon because it's going to go anywhere and it is luxurious.
Yeah, wind is the black art, right? Wind is the black art of this game, and that's something that for me, it's taken just a lot of time behind glass and missing a lot.
I am excited to announce that we have partnered with the Outdoorsmans in Fountain Hills, Arizona. They can provide all of your optics needs along with some of the best machine tripods and mounting accessories in the business. Swarovski, Zeiss, Leica, Leupold, binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, you name it. They can provide it, and at the industry's most competitive prices. They are offering our listeners an exclusive offer on all Outdoorsman's manufactured products such as packs, tripods, tripod heads, and other gear they manufacture. At checkout, type in the discount code RNA15, that is RNA15, and you'll receive a one-time 15% off your order. Please go to outdoorsmans.com and use the discount code today. Thank you for the support. We're here in Nampa, Idaho, and pretty excited to be here today. We had an absolutely awesome day, an experience today that we're going to share and talk about. But specifically, we're here with AllTerra Arms, and we met with them last night and got to have a little orientation of the shop, got to meet kind of the brains behind the operation, but also got to meet kind of the start to finish, everything that they're doing. Pretty awesome stuff. And followed up today, we were able to get out on the range and get some trigger time in, which was pretty awesome. And, for someone like me who's not a huge rifle shooter, learned a lot of great things today that we're going to talk about concept-wise. So anyway, with that, we got a full gamut of folks here. I got all 6 inputs plugged in, and we want to make sure that we get everyone on the line today and kind of talking about what we're going to be doing and talking about. So anyway, to my immediate right is my good buddy Ryan Newkirk, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Lucas. So, we're here. We had a great day today. A few months ago, I had put in my order for a custom AllTerra Arms rifle, and then a couple weeks after that, I got the invitation to come up to this shooting school, and couldn't pass on that opportunity. Invited a couple buddies to come along with me, and here we are.
Yeah, and I'm Kyle McAbee, to Ryan's right here. I'm one of those buddies he invited. We work together, and we're also become friends, and I'm lifelong hunter. Never have been extremely, tactical or technical about, long-range shooting, and thought it was a good experience to come up and check out AllTerra, most importantly, and then, learn a little bit more about MOA and shooting at distance and those kind of things. So great experience today. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Aaron Mikesell, engineering manager with AllTerra Arms, also step in and help out with the shooting courses when they come along every once in a while.
I'm Travis Woodbury. I'm kind of the lead instructor. My background is kind of within the Marine Corps in the sniper community, and I got some experience also in the law enforcement. And I've been starting to kind of get into the competition stuff, which is a lot of good fun, and gets you a chance to really interact with a lot of great people that are usually in the shootings industry.
So I'm Mick. I'm Travis Woodbury's buddy, and that depends on who you ask. what time of day it is and how many whiskeys we've had. But so I'm prior military as well. Navy, served with the Marines. Shoot competitively, shoot with Travis, and he's the one that introduced me to AllTerra Arms, and checked out their facility. I was very impressed with it. Still getting on them about building me a left-handed rifle, but
Tick tock.
If you just learn to do things right, you'd actually be right for a change.
There'll be continual plugs throughout this whole podcast about left-handed bolt action receiver rifles. So
yes, there will be.
we're just going to throw that out there. So take note, Aaron. Although we did see some pretty exciting stuff yesterday. So cool. Great having you guys on today. Obviously, Kyle and Ryan and myself driving up, we had a lot of things we were talking about, what's this going to be like? Are we going to be in kind of this really controlled environment where there's going to be these shooting benches? We don't know what to expect, right?
There was no control today.
Yeah. So we roll up today and we meet Travis, and so we're like, hey, what's going on? Yep, meet us. So we're going to go up here by another mile. We're going to take a left on a dirt road, and we're thinking like, okay, there's probably facilities, wash your hands, if you got to use the restroom. So we're rolling out, and we take a left on a pretty not used very well dirt road, and we're going out, and I see this looks like a canvas wall tent in the distance. I said, okay, this is our kind of thing. This is, if we got to squat in a little sagebrush, we'll do that. But no, just a super awesome day, super awesome experience. And today I think what we really want to do is just kind of recap what we learned today, talk about some of the concepts, some of the things that you guys do in terms of kind of the skills and development that you're looking for out of shooters. And I would say for me, pretty novice, two guys that are way more experienced and advanced than I am, but kind of talking through what we did today. And it was just a super awesome experience, a lot of fun for day one. And man, we even got to stretch out the rifles a little bit today and hit some steel, which is always fun. So, and just for the listeners, we are sitting in a cigar bar in downtown Napa, and so it's what you can't see is it's a little smoky in here, but there's a little background noise. But I think that makes our discussion a little more authentic today. So anyway, so maybe Travis, just kind of just maybe at a 10,000 foot level, like someone coming in to do range days, AllTerra experience, like what's someone going to think, what should they be coming in with, thinking about some expectations in a shooting course that you'd provide?
Well, basically, they can come in with no real basic experience in it. I mean, we're kind of the courses are kind of structured so you can actually come in and we kind of give you a lot of the detail of what. It's kind of slow enough. We kind of show you how the rifle needs to fit you. Then we can start moving into the actually more technical side of us about actually how to make calibrate your scopes, make sure they're working and functioning correctly, and then we start bringing you to do the ballistic apps and how they actually apply to it. The goal is actually trying to show you that there's always an error built in within the system. There's nothing perfect. I mean, like we kind of talked about, we can never remove the human error in the entire process, and then whether it's in the manufacturing of the rifle. AllTerra does a good job with how they design their action and how the receiver reaches in there and how the bolt actually interacts and how it's centering and aligning that entire cartridge. But as far as the actual testing and what we're doing, you're actually seeing where there's errors at and how we're actually be able to check for them and how we can actually account for that error that's going to be built in there. It's naturally there. So
I mean, anyone could just sign up, show up, bring their whatever rifle they have and learn to shoot that rifle more effectively, more efficiently, understand the ins and the outs of that rifle. It's not that you have to go and like Ryan did and purchase a beautiful firearm like you did. You could bring anything to the table here and have the same experience that he would have.
With all the rifles, there's only one rifle that was an AllTerra today, so I mean everyone could come in and bring. We can make whatever shows up work. I have made those $50 scopes that people buy thinking they're a long-range scope work. It wasn't as effective, and when you start doing the calibration test, that's when you actually really start seeing the advantage of buying that higher-end glass, like we did with his Collis. I mean, that Collis was just right on all the adjustments, was perfect. So
that was kind of next level. Like I've never shot anything like that. Like it's kind of like, okay, when I grew up, I rode in like a Cutlass, like freaking station wagon where the seats, on the back stood out the back. But then you take a rifle like that, and it's like, okay, this is what it's like to ride in a Rolls Royce. Like, this is like the Cadillac of like everything that I've ever seen or done. And pretty spectacular firearm you have.
Yeah, thank you. It's a smooth ride for sure. And like Travis was saying, you go through these schools and you go through the technical aspect of the rifle and the scope, and it really exposes your gear to what its limitations are, right? And I think that's important to do because that's going to give you confidence now in the field when you're pulling down on that big game animal, right?
Sure. Yeah, so you think about, so how does this apply in what we do, right? So you guys are, you guys have a long history in the military and obviously sharpshooting and sniper and just things that we all look at are like, God, these guys are kind of like badasses, right? But simple guys like us, we like to hunt, we like to shoot, right? And that's kind of our application, right? So we're guys that just kind of show up and like to shoot stuff, but also, like to get some trigger therapy and like to kill some animals. But I guess in thinking about, this course and kind of how it's structured, I'm sure you've probably had all walks of life of people that come in, but generally is it hunters that you guys seem to be targeting, folks that come in with, like you say, your standard 300 or 7 mag with kind of, off the shelf ammunition and really teaching them how to shoot that system?
Yeah, I really just like bringing in someone who has a strong interest in learning how to shoot. I said, I've got one gentleman who likes to come. He comes out all the time. He's got cerebral palsy. He's isolated into a wheelchair, and he doesn't have full use of his body, but he just comes out and we go and shoot all the time because he's passionate about it. And that's really what we want. We want somebody who just comes out and wants to learn and just sits there and listens and says, this is what we found works for us. We've showed you a couple things. Some of you people try it and like, I didn't like that. Okay, that's fine. I mean, we'll find what works for you. I mean, there's different 100 ways we can actually make something work, as long as it's working for you and you're comfortable with how that's actually performing.
Yeah.
I grew up, I'm born and raised in Idaho up in a little area, so I grew up hunting, and so that's my main application in life. And that's really what kind of probably pushed me more towards what I ended up into the military, because, they're hunters. That's really what the dynamic of it. And most of the guys in that field have a hunting history.
Sure.
Because it's kind of a passion. It's an internal passion, I guess.
You guys just get to hunt like 2-legged creatures, not 4-legged creatures. It's a little different.
It is a little bit different.
Right. We won't get into that, but it's just a little different.
But it really just hunting growing up. We kind of talked when I'm going out just hunting on my grandpa's probably. Where I learned how to do it was just basically with 22s and BB guns, just hunting and learning how to get better and better. Still, one of the coolest shots I've ever made from myself when I was probably about 14. I had my dad's old Marlin bolt action 22. In the standing, I shot a squirrel off a rocket like 110 yards. That's still one of my coolest shots. Just a little ground squirrel sitting there like, I did it.
Yeah. But you talked about today. shooting a cow elk with a 30-30 lever action. It doesn't have to be a $8,000-9,000 system with a $3,000 scope, right? The principles apply. Open sight. The things we learned today to me are so interchangeable across whatever you're doing, right? It's setup, it's alignment, it's all that stuff we're going to talk about. That's so critical.
Yeah, my daughter, she does all this, and she uses a Remy. She just uses a $400 rifle with a $300 or $400 scope sitting on top of it, and that's what she does all of her hunting with. It works. It's not as fine as it's not as minute, not as consistent, but it works. And she's taken elk at 6. I think her first elk was taken like 660 yards with it. So they work. The systems work.
So back to your original, I think AllTerra, and you can correct me, Aaron, but originally started with hunting rifles because that's where the passion is, and that's honestly where the biggest piece of the market is, right? But as it's progressed as a company, you're going to start seeing them get into more precision rifle stuff and bringing that equipment to the market, and that's what I'm excited for because that's what I do. But.
Well, their action is set up to give you a more precise a level of precision that no other actions really are able to offer, just because, one, they got the patents on it, but the ability to center align that cartridge within the center align the bolt and the entire operating system is unbelievable.
Yeah, and there's a fine cut difference. We'll clue in, the shooters, Kyle and Ryan, but I notice it going shooting my Model 700, heavy ass wood stock, no muzzle brake, and I sit underneath, like Ryan's rifle, and it's such a different feel, such a different setup, everything about it. I have to position myself differently, but everything about it feels so much better than, my archaic, big, heavy 13-pound rifle, right? But there's some magic there for sure. And we talked about that yesterday.
I'm sold after what I learned yesterday and after shooting today. I'm sold on AllTerra.
Well, I think it's important we point out what one of the big purposes of these shooting courses is to help individuals understand the margin of error in their system and themselves, and establish what their ethical range is with their equipment and their shooting ability. And then once you know that, now you know what you can work on yourself, and if the platform is the crutch, you know that now too, and you can do something about it.
Yeah,
So
it truly is an incredible baseline for you guys coming out here and to get that right, to get a baseline to know exactly what he's saying, where your equipment's at, where you're at as a shooter, and then positional, right? Which we'll go into, I think, a lot more tomorrow is positional shooting, but which for hunters it's extremely important. But it's just a great baseline.
Yeah.
Well, and that was really my motivation for jumping into this, because this rifle was the first really nice rifle that I've ever bought. I mean, I got everything exactly as I wanted it. And so what better way to start out with it than to just learn the ins and outs of every aspect of that system, and to do it under, expert watchful eyes when they're correcting my position to give me a more stable platform, when they're teaching me how to verify whether my scope is dialing correctly or not, everything down to hand positioning and trigger pull and all of that. When you start there, then you can just build on that for a lifetime.
And it's a reassurance, right? I mean, it builds your confidence, and if you don't have confidence, which I've ran into that issue, a few times, between changing guns and figuring out shooting positions and second guessing yourself and
short stroking.
And short stroking. So how far are we in? About 10, 20 minutes?
Are we getting the nicknames already? Or
Yeah,
I think we just exposed that.
Yeah, I think we did. We'll
don't
get
worry
into
about
that.
tomorrow. You'll be hard stroking.
But I think that really is the key, because the best thing you can take into the field when you're shooting a match or shooting at game animal is confidence. Right, that's what you're trying to build here, is that confidence in yourself, in the equipment, all those things.
There's no doubt.
Know your limits, own the shot.
So, like today with you, how many times, what ranges were you having first round impacts at? You just could click, dial, and click off, just going off of the
Yeah,
habits.
I mean, once we got everything dialed in, I had a first round impact with a lot of side wind, by the way. It was
It's
pretty good.
ridiculous today.
That's wind.
At, what was it, 420, and then again at 480, and then again at 560, and then I think it took me 3 shots to get dialed in at 800.
We were dealing with some really hard, switchy winds today.
That was
I mean,
Operation
they were
Desert Storm.
right?
But I mean, they were just left and right. So I mean, you would still hit your animal. We're shooting actually minute of angle plate. So when you're saying 600, you're shooting at a 12-inch plate at 600 yards.
Sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then ended up taking it out to 1,150 yards. And this is a 7.1 pound 308.
Right, with lots of holdover.
Yeah, there we ran out of some scope there. There was a combination of dialing every minute I had available in my scope.
I guarantee it tonight he'll be staying in bed and he'll be doing that calculation. God, I was like 3.5 feet to here, and then we were already talking about
I took a mental picture. Yeah, no, it was a 51 feet of holdover.
Right.
Wow,
That's
a lot. That's incredible.
Hold over a bush, left a bush and a half.
Yeah, we were starting to use landmarks versus like MOA or mills at that point. See that bush? Just aim for that bush.
Down a half bush. Okay.
We all know that concept.
We love to go down on bush.
Let's really talk about so let's recap the day. So the one thing I really want to highlight to start was we started out with a safety briefing, right? And I think what's key with whether you're in a controlled environment, in a gun range, whether you're doing something like this, irregardless, safety is the number one thing, right? And it's paramount. And I mean, Mickey even brought out a trauma bag in the event something happened. Like, to me, there was reassurance there that it wasn't, hey, guys, let's get our rifles out and start firing. Like, you know, Travis, you did a complete safety briefing with us to start. We did, you know, probably for the first couple hours, we were understanding our firearms better. We were figuring out alignment, teaching us that is the foundation. That's the baseline.
Yeah, we
right?
were about 3 hours of just getting comfortable with the rifle before we even actually sent it around.
Yeah.
So
I think that's important to kind of highlight when folks coming into this, because I think people want to know I'm coming into a class where, yeah, safety's of the utmost, you know, obviously importance in this, but at the end of it, we're going to have fun and we're going to have a good time. And there was a lot of laughs shared. There was a lot of joking, and we'll get to that. But the first thing that really, I mean, for me, takeaway is, you know, as you started showing us how to align ourselves on our rifles, it was a complete shift for me in how I had to move my hips over, how I had to find out where my alignment was. Like, I never ever had instruction on that.
You relearn how your body needs to fit and adjust, and why we need to adjust that. I mean, because, well, for one, we're never going to be able to stop recoil. I would hate to try to carry a gun that could control that. We wouldn't have to worry about recoil. It would be unbelievably heavy, but we can set our bodies up to actually absorb that and actually make sure it's a consistent. As we had talked about, it was a follow through. So now, your follow up shot. So you're going to take that round, and you're going to be able to quickly reassess and acquire your target to actually engage if you need to. So
and spot that shot. I mean, staying on the scope and having it come straight back to you keeps you on target, so you can spot where you hit.
You can sit under the scope and see it, right?
If you're just letting that rifle fly and you can't get back on target, you're never even going to see where it hit, let alone get back on target for another shot.
Well, and you, the reality is you own that bullet, right? Like, that's your bullet. So wherever it stops, you have to know.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and just that initial concept of setup and then follow through were two things that, of anything that I did today, I tried to make sure that in everything I did, I had some form of setup. And you guys had to remind me a couple times, hey, dude, look at your setup. I'm like, it's a learned behavior, right? It's like golfing. We've all golfed or done something, and then imagine going to a pro and him changing your swing, right? It's the same thing. So we're getting professional instruction that we've been doing something for the last 25 years, and here I've got to, move my hips here, put my feet out, So that part for me was hard to break some of those habits that I've had, but I noticed as I started focusing on that, following through on the shot, staying under the scope, that I was shooting much better by the end of the day than I would have ever shot starting in, going into that.
And the addition I would give you on that is when you get back to the Republic of California.
You can say it.
The people dry fire practice, man. Keep those skills sharp, because it's a diminishing skill set, right?
Yeah.
So
it's perishable, right?
Yeah.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
And that's kind of like when we introduce a new skill. Every time we ever started, the first thing we started off with was you dry fired it.
Yeah.
The reason why is you dry fire is because I'm imparting a new memory, and I want that memory to actually be so when you actually shoot, it's now a positive learning experience, not a training scar, with lack of a better word.
Yeah.
You're learning. This is why this works.
Yeah.
So.
And once it sets, every time after that, when you're out of position, you'll know it. You'll just not
feels
feel
weird.
comfortable. You'll feel weird. You'll go, man, should I be squeezing that?
But it felt awkward getting into that position, because
Right
it's like,
now
this
it
is
does,
not the norm for
Yeah.
me. But now it's like, okay, I realize why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, but you understand, right now it's a discomfort, but then as you get doing it, because it's the same thing for me. When I first started going, I'm like, this don't make no dang sense to me.
Yeah.
But as now it's comfortable, and now when I get into it, it's just second nature. I'm in that position, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, that's all right. So I'm not an expert marksman by any means. I'm not a competitive shooter or anything like that, but I've been shooting rifles for 30 plus years. I put 2,000 plus rounds a year downrange, and I learned tips and tweaks and techniques and things that, maybe it was something I had a basic concept of, but it was explained, okay, this is why you do this.
And that's the why, right? I mean, that's the important part.
Yeah, like you said, at first, repositioning your body in a certain way feels awkward, but then all of a sudden you see the results, and it's like, okay, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
And then, you work on it a little bit more, and you reposition your hand a little bit more, and, you put 10, 15 rounds down range, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can work with this.
You get that, right?
You know, and
build
when
a
your
mental-
shooting improves dramatically, just in that really short time frame.
Right.
Well, and you mentioned golf, right? It's the same concept. It's a mental game, A, and B. If you're having a problem and you make a change, it feels wrong. It feels weird, and it's not what you're used to. But typically, that means you're doing something right.
Yeah.
You know, if you're having an issue, if you're trying to improve.
It's like, to me, it's like a mental blueprint, right? I mean, we all have these phases in life where things come in and you learn certain things. I mean, you learn how to walk, you learn how to do this, but it's like we were given a gun at the age of 8, 7, 5, a BB gun, or 12, whatever that is, right? Everybody's different. But you learn it, and you learn what, you were given it, your dad taught you how to shoot, but then, again, we're all adults, we're grown-ups, and then you get into something like this, and it's reprogramming, blueprinting in your mind how to do this at, so I'm 39 years old, and I've shot a rifle for a lot of years, but I'm literally reprogramming how I'm supposed to do this, right? And for me, how do you take those skills and continue? Like you said, they're perishable. How do you continue to ensure that, practice perfect every single time, right? Perfect practice makes perfect. And I noticed that even Ryan, a couple times you shot, you even said it. You're like, I knew I pulled that one, or I knew I wasn't set up right. And I'm videoing it, and I could see clearly that, there was an outlier there, right? So...
And that's the feedback you want to have, right?
And I would say to anybody that's considering coming up here, or anybody that does come up here and do this experience with you guys, that they need to come into it with an open mind. I don't care if you've been shooting for 40, 50 years, 2 years, whatever it may be. You may be a long-range shooter already, but come into it with an open mind. Don't take offense to anything, and know that there's probably something, if not many things, that these guys can correct for you that they can see that you can't see. You can't see yourself shoot it.
Yeah.
And come and do it with an open mind makes a huge difference.
Well, and I think, too, and Travis spoke to it a little bit earlier with his buddy that comes out and shoots with him that has cerebral palsy. If there's a physical issue and you have to work around that, and maybe you can't get it, like I'm old as hell, right? So I don't really get into actual proper shooting position, but we'll teach you how to manage around that too, right? So I think that's important.
Well, yeah, everybody has different mechanics, and the idea is to figure out what that body's mechanics is and get them aligned behind that rifle as straight as possible, and with a good frame and structure to manage that shot. And you can do it a bunch of different ways, but most people don't do it one of the right ways.
Yeah, yeah. But one of the things I think we can kind of jump to now is, so we kind of went through this whole calibration phase, and we were calibrating. I mean, we were shooting, okay, aim on the lower left. The next thing you know, you're going to shoot in the same spot, but you're going to shoot this box. That's,
the box adjustment?
Yeah, exactly. So for me at first, I didn't understand what we were doing. And then it wasn't until we did the second exercise where we calibrated, I think, on the low end of the box.
Elevation
then
adjustments.
we did elevation adjustments all the way to the top, and then we came back down. That's when in my mind, I said, okay, I know exactly what we're doing now, but why is that important? Maybe you can explain the why behind why would we calibrate shooting at the same spot, yet basically building a perfect box on a target?
Well, so anything you deal with, when you're dealing with people, we have a natural tendency to fuck things up. We make mistakes. Even
we make mistakes? Humans make mistakes?
We've been known to make a few.
I thought
of
we
them.
were perfect. I mean, come on, guys.
We've been known to make a few of those mistakes. And so basically what we're doing, or what also happens with these, especially when you start tearing on these turrets, they're a machined component. And so they eventually wear out. Just because of that constant friction is going to wear those components out. When that wear is going to actually cause an adjustment and a change in how these the scopes are going to adjust.
Well, they come with a margin of error. I mean, as a guy that machines every day, I cannot hit nominal every day, every time. And so there's a margin of error in everything you get, and you're figuring out what that is in your system.
Yeah, and these are high-end precision optics that we're playing around with. And he does this for a living, and he knows it. Tooling wear, and you got to be constantly on top of it to make sure that. So it's not the manufacturer's fault. I mean, it's a natural.
It's built in.
It's the physical world we live in.
It's manufactured that way, and
so basically what we're going to do is we're showing you these calibration aspects to actually test for this problem that's going to be there. Or like I've had some scopes where I've had for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they quit shooting. I'm like, everything's going all over, and it's just because that scope is finally wore out. And if you go with a good company, the Vortex, I just sent it back, and they fix it and send it back to me. And there's a couple of Leopold does it. I know there's a couple other companies out that do it. I just had really great working relationship with them, and getting that done. So that's one of the benefits of it. And so when we're checking for an error, and then and these calculators, they know that error is going to be there. The guys that designed this, they know it's there. It's well known within the community that's going to be there, and so they design these ballistic calculators to account for that error. You just got to give it the right information. That's the important dynamic. Is what these ballistic calculators do. If you lie to them, they're going to return the favor and lie right back to you when you come to doing your adjustments. And that's the human error aspect. And I'll be honest with you, I've lied to these ballistic calculators several times, not knowing it because I didn't understand some of the information I was putting in there, and it repaid the favor. So.
Well, when we saw that right off the bat with my rifle, it's I mean, the guys at AllTerra verified that it's a .1 MOA shooter. So I knew it wasn't the rifle's fault, but then we're doing that tall test is tall target test, right? And so when we dialed to the calibrated amount of dope, it's off by almost 5%. That's not ideal, but then you plug that data into the ballistic calculator, and every shot after that, the dope that calculator was giving to me was spot on. Like I said,
the wind calls was killing us.
Yeah, the wind was. You can't fix that, and you can't fix the shooter.
Right.
But that elevation dope was spot on all the way out to 800 plus yards, and so you can account for those expected errors.
Right. And then that tall test also tells you, or can tell you, if you have your rifle square and it's parallel.
If you've got your scope mounted.
If you've got your scope mounted square, right? Because you'll see cant in that distance of 33 inches, right? So you can say, okay, is that the scope's mounted incorrectly, or am I not getting that rifle squared up?
And the reason the other problem where we like to start with the calibration test is because we talk about this is a mental game. The long range is a mental game. And if we start you off with bad confidence, we just try to take you out and want you to shoot long targets where we call you out. But now we're giving you a way to actually diagnose your own challenges that you got a bit in there and building the confidence in your own equipment and within yourself to actually fix a lot of your problems.
Yeah, that was huge.
That was huge. Every man, right? You have a problem, what do? We want to fix the problem, right? It's like when your spouse or whatever has a problem, they don't want you to fix the problem for you.
They just want you to hear it.
Exactly. But what do we do? We want to fix it. We want to fix it. Well, we're geared the same way. We're all that way. When we do something wrong, we're trying to shoot steel at 11:54, and we're missing. We're like, shit, what do I got to do, right? So everyone's talking, okay, just, quarter here, turn one click here.
Push there, push here.
Having a good spotter makes a big difference.
But there's a lot going on. Like, my mind's like half blown, and I'm an engineer actually by trade too, but my mind's blown because there's so much stuff going on, and I've been so trained in MOA, like the whole mill thing became much more relevant to me, and why there probably is an advantage to having mill dot versus, MOA, but I've never been instructed or learned under that system, and I shot a rifle today that was under, mill. So getting some of that, some of that experience is, to me, that was, worth the price of admission just by showing up, right? And learning how the different systems, kind of work both in tangent but also differently.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan. I started out on the MOA system, and I had to relearn onto the mill system. And you're actually going to see the real benefit of using these graduated reticles tomorrow when we start going into the unknown distances and actually and the actual calibers, because we're going to actually be able to add and subtract those numbers, because we can count in tens. That's our mathematical system, whereas MOAs are in quarters.
Yeah.
We don't count in quarters real easily in our head. Unless you've done it a lot of repetition, then you get really good at it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I encourage people to go to the mill system, because we know how to do that.
Sure.
We can add and subtract.
It's natural for us, right?
Yeah, when you said that, before I would have been going, no, that's just another thing to learn. I just finally figuring out MOA to a degree, and when you said, hey, we count in tens, think about it, and I thought, well, yeah, if it's in factors of 10, it's pretty easy to do the math pretty quick, and that makes perfect sense.
Tomorrow you'll get to actually gain a lot of. Chris will have his gun out there, I'm sure, and you'll get to play around with that a little bit more and actually see, it's another moment. It's
so
like,
long
why
as I
this
don't
works.
short stroke.
As long as you don't short stroke.
We're going to short stroke. But we're going to teach you how to look at you know the body diameter of a deer, so we'll be able to show you how to mill that deer. maybe you don't have a rangefinder, you'll be able to know how far that deer away is, right?
Or know the confidence of what your distance is to actually have an impact on it. So kind of like what we're going to go on with tomorrow is you've got 12 inches of drop, right? And so what we're looking at is what these targets are set up is about 12 inches, which is about your deer, your common deer, a lung cavity for your drop.
Yeah.
And so basically what we're going to do is what's the distance of that 12 inches of change? Okay, so now we know it. Now we're going to know how to adjust. So I think I'm over my max distance, so I'm going to adjust here. I'm going to hold a little bit higher to account for that potential air that's going to be there. So and we also talked a little bit about how the parallax can help you actually get you there. It's not the most best system. I mean, I don't encourage it.
Well, and each scope is different. If you don't have your diopter set just perfect, you're going to get some funny stuff there. But
It gives you in the ballpark, and you can actually base that off of that, whatever your scope's giving you and what your estimation is, and so you can kind of get yourself estimate a little bit more accurately.
I don't want to get ahead, but on that note, it makes a big difference whether you're first focal plane or second focal plane doing that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're doing holds, it does.
Yeah.
If you're just using center holds on your reticle, it's not going to matter because when you start dialing on like your duplex reticles, when you dial, it's always there.
So I was referring to measuring the distance.
But if you're milling targets,
if you
it's
actually start
absolutely
measuring
gonna be
targets, we're
important.
not going to do a lot of milling specific. One, we don't have mill. You guys aren't running mill scopes, but we're still going to be able to actually account for knowing where my what range I can shoot at and still have impact on my animal and still actually have a harvest. So
So maybe one thing I want to loop back to too is so kind of the first thing we did is we zeroed. So we checked rifles, we zeroed, and so like my rifle, it was 0 to 200 yards, right? And I know when we shot Ryan's rifle when we got it a couple weeks ago, we shot it to 200 or 100, and it was shooting an inch and almost 7/8 high. So we knew like where that was at. So maybe just talk through so you guys talk about zeroing at 100. I've always kind of been known like, okay, maybe start at 100, move to 2, see where it's shooting, just know. But maybe talk through kind of the zero process and what you guys do there.
I like the 100-yard zero. The reason why is I'm completely removed environmental factors out of that equation. I don't have to worry. Don't matter where if I'm shooting at sea level, if I'm shooting out on top of Mount Everest, the environmental factors are going to have a very limited influence upon that. And the other benefit is just on your mechanical adjustments. So typically within that bullet flight, that bullet is flying up into your line of sight where your reticle's at. It's basically puts all your adjustments up, so you don't have to really adjust down necessarily, depending on where your bore height is. But I mean, typically you're only going to have to adjust up from there. It's a natural line of path for both of those dynamics. That's why I prefer the 100, and it's easy to adjust for it. So now, he knows if I'm at 100 yards, I got 100 yards doe. I just need to come up 2 clicks, and I'm now within my 200-yard doe. I need to come up 4 clicks and get to my 300-yard doe. So it takes away that zeroing at 100, make sure I'm at X amount high to account for this data. I mean, basically all I'm doing is a point blank theory, which we're going to cover in more detail tomorrow.
Okay.
Is what he's doing. What he's doing with his.
Okay.
But we do see that a lot, because hunters are, and the concept is if it's 0 to 200, then I have a very small holdover at 300, and then I've got everything from 0 to 300 covered, right?
Sure.
So we do see that a lot. But yeah, like you saying, there's the time of flight from the shooting line to 100 yards is so small.
Yeah.
You take out a lot of air.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the farther, like you were talking about, guys could zero out to 600. That's great, but there's so much more you got to deal with out to 600 yards in terms of environmental than what you would do at 100 yards.
Yeah, and the other benefit of shooting at zeroing out 100 yards is you've almost completely eliminated the issue with wind. If you're shooting in 30 and 40 mile an hour winds, zeroing 30, 40 mile an hour winds, you're going to have some problems. But I mean, if you shoot in 100 in your normal wind conditions, or the 4 to 5 miles an hour, which is usually constant, it's not really going to be as big of an issue for you.
So to kind of expound on that, if you are sitting in a situation where you don't have an adjustable turrets, you don't have hash marks on your reticle, and you're a hunter, don't go sight in at 200, sight 3 inches high at 100.
Or get a decent ballistic calculator. Figure out you should be 1.8 inches high at 100 yards to be dead on a 200, and then you're...
But you see, my point is, instead of actually setting up and zeroing at a 200-yard range or shooting at a 200-yard range,
minimize the environmental impact.
Right, minimize the environmental impact at 100 yards, and just set yourself at 2-3 inches at 100 yards, and now you're zeroed well, and you're not playing the game of, well, did I zero with that 10-mile-an-hour crosswind
Right.
that I'm not going to see tomorrow. In fact, maybe it's the opposite direction,
Sure.
Well, and I think that's a good point on this rifle, because I didn't set this rifle up to be an 1,150 yard competition
That's
type
just fun
rifle.
stuff.
I set this rifle up to be a really lightweight, superbly accurate, but packable hunting rifle. That's
Right.
its main purpose.
It's a backcountry hunting rifle.
The
That's what it's
majority of
intended.
hunting
Exactly.
that I do, I'm shooting inside of 200 yards, and really closer than that most of the time. And so that's where some of these practical compromises, they're not ideal in this long-range shooting scenario, but you can make them work, and you guys showed me how to make them work.
Well, and ammo availability, right? That's the number one problem that we have in rifle shooting right now. And I think that was a good choice, because a lot of people would ask, why would you buy a 308? Like, we've talked about this multiple times.
Well, because I can
And that's
hit a
conversation.
steel plate at 1,150 yards with it, that's why.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And if you're stuck in Africa on a safari, they probably got 308 on the counter somewhere there, right?
Yeah.
If you show up with 28 nozzle, you're probably screwed.
Yeah.
You're going to be renting a rifle. So
Most of my the rifles I always they're 300 mag, 7 mag, just really common. They're the workhorse of the shooting industry, and right now we're doing a transition right now into the PRCs and the nozzlers. But really, the 7 mag, 300 mag, 308s, 260s, those have been the workhorse for hunters for
270, 30-06. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah. I mean, almost any given time you could. In a normal society, when we were normal, or whatever our normal is now, I don't know. But at the time, you could always walk into any gun store and find those cartridges, because everyone trusted them.
yeah,
they knew they were
tried and true, right?
Yeah,
right. I mean, for years. So I think an interesting variable that we talked about, air and built in. You can't mill and machine anything perfectly, but I mean, let's talk about wind. I mean, and we can expand on our day today, right? And that's the one variable that we all know we can't control at any time, right? But we can build in systems like we learned today to shoot in the wind and be proficient in wind. And today was probably a great example of how we did that. And so we get through, we do the zeros, we do the calibrations, and then all of a sudden it just gets nasty out, right? And we're out basically in the Hawaii desert, out shooting, out to 1,000 yards, and the wind picks up and we got a good shelter, but I mean, it was plumb nasty for a while. But it for me, it was kind of like, well, you know what? When I'm on a high mountain somewhere, this is probably what I'm going to have to expect, right? When is it ever going to be the sunshine and zero wind? I mean, that's not realistic.
That's usually my case, 95 degrees and no wind, praying for rain.
Yeah. But I mean, today it gave us a good appreciation for not only the systems we have and what they can do, but also knowing that, I mean, that's the one variable that at the end of the day, I mean, you can't control it, but you can still make it happen even in the wind, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like kind of things like on the calibration, the point of where they're designed is so you can actually see the value of actually having an anti-cant device. One of I don't remember was almost an inch and a half or something, or 2 inches off at 100, and that's a magnifying effect. And so we're trying to show you that they build your confidence and you can do this at long range. And one of those is if you have cant in your rifle, you're not going to have confidence being able to shoot at longer ranges because as a human air, we're imparting upon that. And how's a mechanical, and that's what you really need to do, is find a mechanical aid or something to reference off of to make sure you're eliminating us.
Yeah.
So we're not contributing to this problem.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're half a bubble off at 100, what's that mean at 1,000 yards? Or I mean, that's a big deal.
20, 25 inches, right?
I mean, if you're an inch off or inch and a half, that's 10 to 15 inches at 1,000 yards.
Yeah, but wind.
That's missing.
Yeah,
right?
wind is the black art, right? Wind is the black art of this game, and that's something that for me, it's taken just a lot of time behind glass and learning it.
And missing a lot.
And missing a lot. And missing a whole lot.
And you guys don't miss a lot. Like you guys start cycling, it's like ding, ding. I mean, you guys obviously you guys trained, you guys have done this for many years, but for me it was good to see you, like seeing you shoot today. Like we didn't get to see Travis, but like seeing both of you guys shoot, like I don't get to surround myself with people that do this. So seeing how you guys do, how you guys set up, how you cycle, all that, like that was good for me to see that, because I hang around novices like this that are better shooters than me, but we don't get to see kind of the life in the world that you guys live in, right? Which was very beneficial for me.
Well, and I think the thing that was cool too, and to kind of bounce off of what Aaron said earlier, every rifle there today was shooting at least sub MOA, way sub MOA in most cases.
And we were changing ammo. I mean, he shot different batches of, not just different lots. He was shooting different manufacturers of ammo and still getting good performance.
Right, and so then we're shooting, to get a little wonky here for a second, we're shooting targets that are typically 2 MOA targets, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to do a little bit of math, but at 600 yards, 2 MOA is 12 inches. Mm-hmm. That's vital size on a big animal. Maybe if you're shooting an antelope, that's not vital size anymore. Yeah. And we were having to do some wind corrections because we had a 15-mile-an-hour kind of variable, quartering, sometimes straight behind wind.
It was 15 and then it was 0.
So what Aaron was talking about learning your effective range, learning the effect that, even a 15-mile-an-hour wind, even a 6-mile-an-hour wind, when you're shooting a sub-quarter MOA rifle at a vital-sized target and you're missing on your first shot, and you're maybe missing on your second shot, and you're having to have a spotter get you dialed in and all of that, that's really, really valuable information from from an ethical hunting standpoint.
Yes, absolutely.
You're learning the limitations of your gear, you're learning your limitations.
Exactly.
Well, and I think
we can work to improve.
Yeah, and I think too, then when you're in the field and you're hunting and you have a wind call, you can make your correction so that if you do miss, you're not going to wound that animal, right?
And if you guys noticed, when we were starting that rapid cycle, rapid fire, it was once we had our wind, we were sending them while we had our wind.
I got that, because I saw that a few times on that 1150. You were just like sending them, and you're like, ping, ping. I'm like, he's hit it again. Whoop, here's another one, hit it again. Like, you were just sending
all
it.
his misses, the ones that missed were just a little off the left, just because the wind changed.
Because you got that window, and you're like,
I got that window, and I'm sending them as fast as I can.
And you have an almost unnoticeable shift in the wind, but at 800 yards, it's changed it by enough to take you off target.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot.
And you don't have somebody sitting there with a Swarovski BTX and another Swarovski and another Swarovski.
And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, that fundamental mechanics of staying behind that rifle and spotting your own shot.
Right.
If you didn't hear anybody give us corrections, we gave ourselves a correction and sent them. You know what I mean? And that's important. You got to get to the point where you can spot that shot yourself, because you're not always going to have that spotter there to hold your hand.
Yeah, so. and you get on behind a rifle like mine that's 22 plus pounds. It's a hell of a lot easier than a 7.5 pound rifle,
and
right?
a 6.5 Creedmoor.
Exactly, right? So there's everything you got to consider.
Your light rifle, the airs are already there. It's not as forgiving. Like his rifle, you could be out of position and just set it on there and shoot it, and it's still probably going to end up hitting the plate. With yours, you had to actually be more conscientious of how you were holding it and how you were using it, because it's light. It's requiring you to absorb that recoil, not the actual rifle's not going to do any work for you.
Right.
But what again I think is a testament to AllTerra too, and what I was so impressed with is, I'm shooting this 7-pound rifle and I'm spotting shots. I'm spotting my own shots.
Yeah.
And they were consistent.
And I'm shooting a big game hunting caliber. I'm not shooting a .223. I'm not shooting.
You can sit under the rifle and see where they're going. Right?
Yeah. Today was one of the first times that I felt confident in spotting my own round. I mean, granted, not without fail. There was a few times where I'm certainly coming off of it and follow through.
The concept, absolutely. Follow through, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm seeing my own, not flinching, not coming, not having that recoil coming up, not losing the target, seeing the dust clouds, seeing all of that. Right. It makes your next round that much different. You know what to do at that point, or at least have an idea.
Yeah, and it's not just a dust cloud. Now that's a wind meter, right? Like there's all sorts of things you pick up.
I was missing on purpose just to kind of gauge our wind down range.
Of course you were. You did that for me.
I appreciate that.
I do that on occasion myself.
That was before the short stroke.
No, that was after short stroke number 1, before short stroke number 2.
Because damn it, when that bullet splatters on the target, there's dust everywhere, and you just can't learn anything from it.
I do got to share a story because I'm standing there. I'm looking at this radial brake. I'm like, God, this is going to be just a monster. We haven't shot live round yet. We're only doing.
You're talking about on
dry
my
fires.
Hell's Canyon. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we won't go on manufacturers' rifles here, but other than AllTerra. But anyway, so I'm
I
like,
you can cut that.
So
out.
and I'm the camera guy. That's my nickname in the weekend. Because I'm gonna put together a pretty badass video. But anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm anticipating okay, this 7-mag radial brake's gonna just literally blow, stand everywhere. So I'm sitting there and I'm like. And then I hear Ryan snickering, and then I hear Mick by me, and I'm like, "Come on!" All of a sudden, you hear click. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" You just now got your nickname. Right. Not only once, but twice.
Yeah. Well, and actually, so I blended on the fact that I'm used to a short mag load, and then I did it with the 6.5, the Creedmoor, and that's no excuse there. So.
Hey, we all make
and
mistakes.
If it makes any difference,
But you know what? A good dry fire will tell you a lot, right?
You know what? I learned a little bit on every one of those. I learned that I wasn't flinching like I figured I would be.
Yeah. So. No, there's a lot to learn there.
The other side of the apple is you could be like Travis and rip the bolt right out of the rifle, and the police goes flying. And
we've heard about that. Yeah. I guess I'm a little rough on things.
I guess I'm a little more delicate.
Right. I have broke a few bolt action rifles, just parts of them.
Yeah. So anyway, post the Oahe Sahara Desert sandblast. So we kind of got through that phase, and then it was like, okay, let's open things up, right? Let's take some of the concepts that you guys have kind of blueprinted and instilled in us, and let's start shooting. So we started shooting, right? We started picking steel, and we started picking it out, and it was just incredible within a few shots how we were taking things. Okay, you're way left. The next thing you know, you're like, oh, you're right over the target. Like that self-correction, like you guys were talking about it, and Aaron, you were hitting on it, right? You got a $50,000 stone sheep standing there that you've paid on this tag, and if you shoot over its back, he probably doesn't know, because if you're shooting at that far distance, he has no idea what's happening. But correcting yourself was key, and having spotters is helpful. But again, we're not going to have this application on our own when we're hunting, right? We're going to be out in a situation where we need to be able to correct ourselves. And I think that's one thing I can take away was learning from each shot that we did, and then even if we hit plate and then we missed the next shot, self-correcting even based on that next shot following that. So.
And you gain the confidence in yourself that you can do that because you've seen how to do it, and now you know it will work.
Right. And even if you do have an impact, you can see the tendency, right? Because where did I hit on that plate? Right? And you can see, okay.
High left. Even if you hit the plate, cool, you hit the plate, but it was high left. Well, that could be the difference of a no man's land on an animal versus hitting lungs, right?
Yep.
So, no, that was super helpful for me. And then what was super cool is just stretching stuff out. I mean, that's always kind of the fun thing, right? I mean, I've shot my rifle at just under, I think it was 980. I'd never shot 1,000 yards, and then here we're planking steel at 1152 with all the various
several rifles
that were sitting there, and
every rifle, I think.
That's just. I mean, personal. You said you called it out.
Oh,
There's a PR.
Yeah, absolutely.
PR for me, and
I've never even tried to shoot that far, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but again, in a system where you're confident, and we were interchanging on different rifles, and you could still sit underneath that system.
And everyone was shooting different rifles at the same time and getting it. And with the 1,150 yards, it's not like we're telling you this is your ethical hunting range. The whole intention, what we're actually teaching you is you've given you confidence that you can shoot that far. So now when you got within your 600 or 700 yards, or
it's a chip
yards,
shot, right?
I can do this.
Yeah.
I know this will work. I can make this happen.
Yeah.
And so it takes away that self-doubt that you're going to do when you go actually press the trigger and put the bullet on the meat.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned gun manufacturers, but I won't say anything more about that other than, do you guys do trade-ins? Like credit? Oh, wow. Because going from mine to the AllTerra guns are just unbelievable.
I think you just have to lose
I don't know if a pawn shop's in our business model or not.
Ouch. Rhetorical question.
Yeah, I think you're just going to have a boat accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we all talk about, right?
Yeah.
I need a new rifle.
You can never have enough anyways, and so
that's a good point. Yeah, like I said, I'm a huge fan now that I've learned what I've learned and shot a few of the
Well, the
some of
guns
their
you need
guns.
is N+1. N's the current number, and you
Right.
need one more.
Right. Who sells guns anyway, right?
It's never a need. It seems just kind of a want. And then you come here and you start seeing these, you start shooting them, and you're like, God, I think I need to kind of have one of those.
Because they're just fun.
They are just fun.
Well, the confidence that comes in a system like that is worth the money.
Right.
Especially like you were saying, Lucas. You know, you're looking at a $50,000 stone sheep. Why skimp?
Yeah,
Right.
If you
Own that.
ruin that animal, you don't recover him. You just paid $50,000 and you came home without a stone sheep, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that may be the difference, but that in itself is worth every single penny, right? Because you may not be able to close the canyon to get to that sheep, and you got to make a 700-yard shot, right? Having the confidence to do that and a system to do that,
And that was
that's important.
Really, the whole thing behind the AllTerra rifle was to build that rifle. We'd been on those hunts where you spent all that money. The best shot you saw was 700 yards. You better have something that can make it, or you're just going to look at it at 700 yards.
Yeah.
Take cool pictures. Shoot it with pictures.
That's why you got to bring camera guy with you.
Well, and so to take it back to the car analogies for a second, yeah, maybe your custom competition setup is a Rolls Royce,
Right.
But man, that AllTerra Mountain Shadow Carbon is a G-Wagon,
Right.
Because it's going to go anywhere and it is luxurious,
Right.
But
Yep.
with that
pretty to
being
look at.
said, Ryan, I got to ask you, even with that AllTerra rifle prior to today, do you think you would have been making those shots? Because I tell a lot of my customers, because they'll ask me, what can I get? What's the best range for? I don't know. What should I get next? And I would say, training. You need to learn how to run that gun.
I completely agree, and so I've shot a lot of really nice rifles, and I've owned some really accurate rifles. This one surpasses them all, and I've got a range on my property that I can go out to 850 yards, and I use it. And so I've pulled off shots at that distance, but I was never confident. There was always kind of an element of surprise, and part of that was equipment, and part of that was now all of a sudden I have this understanding of, okay, why is this happening? When I pulled that shot, I can't say that the rifle all of a sudden turned into a 2 MOA rifle when it was shooting half MOA at 100 yards. It's because I made some minor mistake that cost me at distance. One going all the way
But
back.
now you know how to adjust it and then check for yourself to know where my mistake is affecting this and how I can correct it.
That's what I was just going to say, going back to the beginning, that box deal we did. I mean, you can do that if you're starting to have issues or something and you're not sure if it's you or the equipment. Go out and do that, and you can figure out if those springs are starting to wear, or if there's a mechanical issue. Yeah, on your turrets, that.
And the other thing that was really cool is, we survive the windstorm, we get back into the tent, a little bit more instruction, and then you turned us loose. You said, okay, range is open.
Have fun.
Fire
just,
away.
shoot, just pick your target and shoot it, and we'll call.
Right.
We were calling wind. The wind was a nightmare today.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a brutal mess.
It was everywhere.
But
we were still hitting them.
And I knew that the whole time you guys were sitting there watching us.
Oh, yeah.
And every once in a while, I feel those eyes burning a hole, and it's like, okay, pause, take a breath. What am I doing? Focus on the fundamentals, because I can just sling ammo downrange, or I can take my time and I can get that first round hit, because there's nothing that feels so good as
still don't lie.
That sound,
you just hit that target.
that thwack, you just can't replace that sound,
Yeah,
right?
and you just hit that target at 800 yards, and now you plug your dope into your ballistic calculator, and you bring it back to 424 yards, and you hammer the target. And then you take it back out to 624 yards. And maybe miss a couple times because the wind was messing with us.
But the misses weren't large. I mean, they're usually just a little off the right. There was a couple times where the wind was just it was switchy left and right, or it just stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, in between
then it was
shots.
just calm. Like, and then we're all standing there. We're like, okay, who's shooting? There's like no wind right now. We're all looking around. Like, I'm looking at my spotting scope. I'm seeing like no flagging moving. I'm like, now's probably a good time to be shooting. Which, if you're Mick, you'd have just been hammering at that point. You're like, all right, we're running.
Send it.
Okay, live fire, send it. Live fire, send it.
Yeah, and then as soon as you get behind the gun, 2 minutes of wind correction turns into 7 minutes of wind correction, turns into 3 minutes of wind correction.
We had a time like we start no wind. We started out with like we're shooting. We're like it's seven MOA, and then all of a sudden we're down to no MOA, and then we're back to 7 within a matter of like less than 2 minutes.
Yeah. And the other reason
that's probably like 5 rounds in between that whole entire transition.
The other thing that I thought about today was the reason you guys run those downrange and can make those corrections so fast is because you practice. Obviously, aside from your past and the years of experience, I'm sitting there and it takes me 30 seconds to run another round downrange. And by the time I make that 7 MOA windage correction, it's changed. And we were seeing that consistently. And so being able to not think about it, but to just second nature, be able to make that windage correction and hit it while the wind is still doing what you made that correction for. Right. So that's huge.
Well, like Nick said, the wind is the black art. And I hope today, even though, you guys were getting wind calls, you were at least watching the indicators so you could kind of get an idea of what we were watching and how we were making those calls.
Yeah.
And every miss from here on out, you guys, is an opportunity to know what it was, and look at those indicators before you squeeze the trigger. Know what you think it is and know what it was after you shoot, and eventually you'll make those calls too very easily.
So we're gonna send short stroke out there on that $50,000 goat and tie a wind string on him.
Yeah, I'm not going to live that one down, am I?
Why a wind string? Just send him with a Kestrel. Can you give me wind to target? Thank you.
I'm shooting a 308, so I'm going to have plenty of opportunity to see the effects of wind on a bullet.
Well, and I'll give you an idea, Ryan, that you guys can play. If you have 850 yards, one of you can be standing at 850 yards, the other one can be standing at the shooting position. Obviously, you're not going to be shooting, but you can be talking back and forth with, okay, this is what I'm seeing. What's the wind there? And see how close you are.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you've got somebody with you, you utilize that, and you're a team at that point. Doesn't matter who's.
This kind of caveats us into a different technical piece around Mirage and really how Mirage plays into effect. Like, so I mean, all of us have pretty good glass, right? I mean, looking around what we got, and we've invested a lot in glass, but the best glass in the world, if you've got heat, heavy Mirage, I mean, okay, you hit it. I have no idea where you hit it.
It washes out, yeah.
Exactly. So maybe you guys can highlight a little bit about Mirage, maybe some of the tips and tactics that you guys use for that.
Basically, I mean, for Mirage's me, it's just kind of on the angle, and there's a scientific theory, and they give you all the mechanical.
Well, up to 12 miles an hour, and then it's running flat, and you just don't know.
Well, what's going to happen is usually when the wind's over 12 miles an hour, it's going to wash out the Mirage approximately. I mean, it's all different, but you'll still see Mirage.
That's kind of the number.
But that's kind of the number, but we were still seeing Mirage, and we were dealing with, some really high winds today. But you're still seeing it's just all flat. So we're kind of guessing and going off field. And that was one of the disadvantages for me being inside that tent. I'm used to being outside and feeling the wind and knowing when it's changing. Because when I know when it's changing at me, it's changing downrange. It's going to be a different change.
Yeah, you got to read your terrain.
Yeah, and so
Sure.
That's where because if it's changing me, it's changing on range, and I'm able to actually get a feel for that change after shooting in that environment. That's where a limitation. It was the first time I've ever shot in a completely or really spotted under a covered environment like that. I'll probably be outside more because now we're going into the more technical or the more functional aspects of this one. So like when you do these courses, they're structured like a sushi menu. The only one you really have to do is today because we're going to give you the foundations. We're going to teach you how to look for yourself. Tomorrow, I mean, you can do. Tomorrow we're going to do alternate shooting positions and we're going to do unknown shooting distances. But we can move into moving target. We can start moving into high angle, and you can also even do more of a specific focus on actually wind reading and how to actually gain your confidence in reading wind. And there's different training. We just can't build that within the time frame we're got. For one. 6-7 hours on the range. It's a long, grueling day, and we didn't shoot a lot.
And it goes fast.
It does.
It goes super fast.
It drains you.
Yeah, it is.
And you can't get ammo right now. So
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing I would add about Mirage, when you're looking at the target, you notice that target just becomes blurry, right? And so I cut that target in half, vertically and horizontally. And that's kind of how I take the rough edges off of it when I'm looking at the target.
Well, and the other thing is, if you're driving that rifle properly and you're staying behind it, the advantage of a heavy Mirage day is you're also going to be able to spot that vapor trail a lot more.
Right.
And so
this was your first time seeing vapor, wasn't it?
No, not necessarily, but consistently like that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was awesome, especially looking through good glass on that. the big spotting scope, and you can just track that thing and watch it lob in. And
It's like the whole Matrix bullets flying through the air. Just
It's cool. It's cool seeing that.
Yeah.
Maybe just real quick, I mean, crazy enough we're at an hour and these things just go like crazy, but I think gear is an important part of kind of this conversation. I mean, you talked a little bit about, Travis, I mean, you've had people with $50 scopes and trying to work them through that, but then you got guys that show up with, $2,000, $3,000 scope, optics, you got a, really high quality rifle, but again, all that stuff is great, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, quality we all know is important, and looking through a Swarovski versus a Bushnell, there's a clear difference, right? Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of guys that use Bushnell scopes or have spot, and they kill a lot of stuff, and they're very proficient. So I think gear's important, but maybe you can speak to, and you guys have tripods and you have, rangefinders that are, the price of a rifle, but why do you guys feel like that maybe that equipment and the stuff that you guys use, you guys stand behind that stuff, and where do you see maybe the differences there?
The equipment we have is because it's a confidence issue. I know this equipment. I've tested it, and I have literally abused the living daylights out of this equipment. I know it's not going to fail me when I need it to work. That's what you're really going to gain to. Can you make these lower quality equipment out there work? Yes, you can make it work, and what's going to do is it's going to build your confidence in how to make it work. You're just going to learn your little tweaks or little knickknacks, like I know this is going to do this, or my equipment's going to do this, whereas I take this. I can take the rangefinder, and it's going to perform. I know what I can connect new, I can know how it's going to manufacture, and I know exactly what it's going to do for me, what I'm going to get out of that device.
So it goes back to confidence, really.
Yeah, it's built. And confidence doesn't have to be in the equipment. I mean, the equipment's going to function, but you got to be able to gain the confidence within yourself. And usually, you get quality equipment. It's going to give you the confidence to know that I've got what I need to do the job. I just need to do the job.
Yeah.
So,
and not being able to blame the gun,
right, or the gun, or even the equipment. And so,
right. The biggest thing I see is, particularly on the hunting side, is guys will buy a really nice rifle, and then they will
cheap scope,
and I'm like, oh my god, you just wasted
Walmart
that
tires
whole,
on a Ferrari,
right? And I'm like, God,
You'd rather see it the other way around, I would assume.
I would, because that optic is everything. And I kind of take the mindset of buy once, cry once, right? If you can get by with midline equipment, and you can have a lot of fun, and you can do that. And I would suggest, if that's what you can afford, get out and do it, right?
Buy what you can afford, right? I mean, not everyone can buy an I4 scope, right?
Right.
Yeah, you buy what you can afford, and you make it work the best it possibly can.
Right.
And that's what you
Within
do.
your price range.
Yep.
Yeah, but I would say that you do get what you pay for in this game, right?
For sure.
And so, and you've seen all my equipment. It's all super high-end stuff, but this is what I do. So,
yeah.
I mean, you got to balance your regular life versus this too. So I think we all understand that.
Yeah.
optics really. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're a farmer, we haven't really introduced the farmer yet. You want like the best nutrient ground, right? You want the best area and dirt that you can grow the best vines, right? If you're a
But you figure out how to make do with what you got, right?
What he's done is he's taken the equipment. So his land is fixed. He's never going to be able to change where he's located and is operating. But he's over the years he's learned how to actually maximize and what his ground needs to
dial in.
He's learned how to tweak his equipment to actually perform to what he needs to actually do exactly what he wants to do. So what I like with the my only take on his optics is I tell people, buy the premier optic that you need to put on your rifle, and then build the rifle to fit that optic. And the reason why is because, as you can see, glass is doing most of our work on this game.
Yeah, for sure.
The glass really is. And with the AllTerra, you take that phenomenal glass. You're going to buy the rifles start around $5,500 to $6,500 for most of the rifles. You're going to buy that, and then you're going to go put a $1,000 scope on that. You're not maximizing it. Will the system work? Yes, but you're not maximizing it. It's like what Chris was good with the optics and stuff on there enhance the equipment's ability to actually perform.
For sure.
So
we want to start talking about optics. I mean, I could mortgage my optics with what I have and probably buy another home if I wanted to, but I do that because I know how important optics are, and I'm a bow hunter, so you're a bow hunter, but you look at the optics you're running with, and optics is not
I mean,
I don't have optics on my bow, but I got a set of $3,000 Leica Geovids on my chest. I got a $1,000 rangefinder on my side, and I got a $6,500 spotting scope on my backpack, because if I need to break an animal down, or if I need to sit 3 miles away and look at a stone sheep
And plan
know
your stock.
that it's 8 years old and it's a full curl, that's why I have optics to the quality that I do, because I know that's the difference. And I will cry many times, but then I realized the next day I don't have buyer's remorse. I think I called you on my way home after I bought my BTX. I'm like, you know what? I'm actually really happy I bought this, and I'm like super stoked that I bought this. And but not everyone's in that position, right? And I think that's the key. If it's a Vortex Diamond, Diamondback, or if it's a what have you. Spend what you can, spend the best amount of money that you can, and learn the equipment that you have, and use it to the best of your ability. Right?
But when you buy something, you should be crying a little bit, because you got to stretch it just as far as you can in order to really be satisfied.
I have to talk myself into it. These guys are married. They're like, hey, honey, I gotta.
well, this is
what's the trade-off.
This is how this works off. It was when you're married, you always buy the exact same piece of equipment, and so they can't tell there's a difference.
Right, exactly.
You know this is recorded, right? Right. They're probably going to listen to this.
What's the adage, right? You never tell them how much it's really worth until they're gone, and then your buddies go to sell it or something like that.
Right. Sorry, honey, the podcast thing just didn't work out.
Right. And I will say, though, when it comes to the price point and the optics that we have available now, the long-range game or PRS, NRL, whatever you shoot, has really lent these companies to building some pretty nice entry-level stuff. So I
there
think
really
you
is
can.
a lot of options out there now.
Yeah, at a good
phenomenal
price point, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to
Any
buy
price point,
Swirl
almost at every
Leica
price
Zeiss
point.
to be in the game. I mean, you predominantly shoot a lot of Vortex, right? And known for really high-end quality glass on one end, but also at the beginner entry level, they have
They
stuff
provide you
that's
for everything you want.
exactly. Yeah, there's a full array of glass there, and again, make a good quality product. It's not German and Austrian optics, but at the same time, they do make a great optic, and it's something affordable for people.
Yes.
For everyone that's looking to do that. So. Gear's just, I'm a gear junkie, so
Yeah, we
you
can
guys
keep
saw
going
what I
for a
brought
while.
into the tent. He gives me crap all the time, but it's like, I'm one of those guys, I want the best of the best, and I just I want to limit the amount of failure that I can have happen in the field, and I know if I have the best quality equipment, the possibility or percentage of error is very limited. I want the error to be on me.
Right.
I want me to be the one that makes the error, not my equipment.
And
It gives you that confidence, because you know you're
Because I know
capable.
I can self-correct, right? I know I can make the change or the tweak or what have you, but if your equipment's failing, you lose confidence in yourself and your equipment, right? And that's a problem if you're in the field.
And it's like we talked about when we were doing the tests on the scopes, the tracking tests, right? And I've got that particular scope, that Collis, that has literally had 20,000 rounds underneath it. It's been on that rifle for a long time, through like 5 or 6 barrels. And how did it track today? Right?
It was incredible shooting that.
Right?
It was incredible
standard.
shooting.
That was great. Yeah. I'm not going to have to go buy another scope because that one takes a dump, right? So what does it cost over time? What does it cost per use? And I think that's the thing people really got to think about when they're buying these high-end rifles, high-end scopes, is that it's cost per use. Because you get 5 years into the game and now your equipment's all worn out and doesn't work, you're going to have to buy another one. Well, now you're paying the same amount that you could have just had the one
Bought it
and not
once,
had
right?
all the frustration.
Buy it the
right?
first time, and
That's how we do it in ag. We look at cost per acre. We look at cost per day of coverage on materials that we're applying, and it's not about what a gallon of a material costs. It's how much that breaks down to be per
gallon will go.
Yeah,
And what's it's going to give you on your yield return?
for sure.
Not to mention the a cheaper scope might fail on you. What's the cost of that?
Really, this game starts on any equipment starts at about $300, and just accept it. That's where the game's at, and most of your premier stuff are going to be usually about. They're going to start about $1,500 when you start actually getting into the stuff that you're going to start having confidence in. It's never going to fail you.
You're talking about a box of ammo, right?
Yes, just a box of ammo.
Just box of ammo starts at $300,
$1,500.
and then you just go up from there.
That's the primers. That's just the primers for the box of ammo.
that Leupold VX5 HD, I'm running 3 to 15 by 44 on my rifle, and like we talked about a little bit earlier, there was a little bit of machining flaw in it, but it was also extremely repeatable.
Yeah.
So once we went through all of the calibration procedures that you guys offer, and we figured out what that margin of error was, it repeated time and time and time and time again. And that's an $1,100 retail scope. You know, and the glass.
Good scope. Glass is great.
Great.
They have some amazing glass. I'm really impressed with the glass they've been offering lately.
Yeah, and even in that sandstorm, I mean, our rifles were sitting out.
You got the big blasted.
Everything else was layered in sand, and those lenses just sloughed that off like nothing.
Yeah. No, there's some. To kind of put a bow around that, there's some incredible equipment on the market. There's no question, and I think it just lends to that discussion that you can have the best of the best, and you can have a great system, even like Ryan has, and they all still perform, and they all still within their limitations, you can make them work, and you can work within those, and I think that's what's cool.
Limitation, that's the point of the calibration, is actually learn where those limitations are. So
you can
adjust
them.
Yeah,
you understand them.
Yeah. So I just reflect real quick, and we can recap. We're here at an hour and 20 minutes, but for me, like, if I could take away anything, it's like I learned how to basically set myself up to do this correctly. Like like I said, I've been shooting a rifle a long time, but I didn't know that I had so many little tweaks that I needed to do just in getting set up on the rifle, right? And 9 times out of 10, if I'm shooting a rifle, it's off my pack, whether my pack's vertical and I'm sitting down or my pack's down, and so like today was like probably best case scenario, proned out, right, on a shooting mat, having bags there, but that's not always realistic. But
we're going to shoot prone tomorrow for a cold bore, and after that, you're going to be all up and from everything above that.
But you'll see the mechanics apply from prone all the way to standing. We're going to square up. We're going to find the best way to support ourselves, the rifle, using our bone structure to reestablish that, so you are managing that recoil.
And learning the value of that temporary discomfort when you're learning something new. Like I said, I've been shooting for 30 plus years. I learned a lot of new things, and it was uncomfortable at first. And initially, my instinct was to be like, screw this.
Go back to what you're right now.
But then you shoot a few more shots, and you realize the value in it.
Yeah. No, huge takeaway for me. And like I said, I'm a guy that might pull the rifle out for one tag a year to deer hunt, but at the same time...
Well, let's talk about coyotes, though.
Yeah, I shoot all coyotes. That's true. Those are different, though. That's just like spray. Shoot them as many times as you can. But back to that point, I mean, I drew a Nevada deer tag last year. I applied for 10 years, right? That's a $150 license a year for 10 years. That's $2,000. And then you draw the tag, you drive there. It's a $5,000, $7,000 hunt by the time you're done, right? And it was a rifle tag, and I drew it with some friends that had points. So we kind of point shared together. But it's like, here's a situation where I got this rifle that I had built out of the box, great shooter. It's a Model 700. It's nothing great, but it's got a good optic on it. Shoots well, but
shot really well.
I had to make a shot on that hunt, and I made the shot, and I shot a decent buck. Wasn't the buck I was looking for, but that's 10 years of applying for a tag that when the moment of truth comes, and it was like the second to last day that I could hunt, you got to make it happen, right? And I've learned so much just today that I could have probably used for years of times that I've missed, and times that I've went home and I've ready on suicide watch because I missed the shot, right? I mean,
had soup tag.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've cooked it in many different ways, and it doesn't taste good. So,
now they're plastic, so it's even worse.
Well, in Montana, they're paper. You print them off from a printer now, so they're not even plastic. But no, we're going to learn a lot tomorrow, but today, so many things learned just on my behalf, and I'm sure you guys can expound on that. But
Same.
I don't really have to, push this class. I mean, you guys do some incredible stuff, and it was well worth the time today, and had a lot of fun amidst the weather. But We all agree. I mean,
And the company.
It's Idaho, right?
Give it 5 minutes, it'll change.
Exactly. You know, go to Alaska in September. If you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. But yeah, no, the company was good too. We all had to earn our nicknames today, so
Yeah, give that a couple of glasses. That'll change too.
that's true.
Some more willing than others.
Yeah. But no, great time and had a lot of fun today. So,
Yeah.
Hey, any last closing comments?
If you're looking to improve your knowledge and your skill set, these guys are the people to do that. It's incredible. And that's just with what, 6 hours of time together today. So
Yeah, well, probably a little bit less than that because we had to take a break because of that
yeah.
sandstorm.
And I think Travis would agree. We're one outlet of this kind of training. There's other ones out there. So if you're not this close or you can't come this far, I'd still encourage you to seek somebody out local to you. The training is
Get the training,
a big
right?
deal.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other dynamic. We have the ability to travel to different locations, especially if you have the facility or if you have a ranch. We can go down there and we can do it. And we've got ranges in California, several in Texas, several locations in Idaho. I can do it. I can do Washington, and I have a friend in Montana. I could actually.
you have caught our attention.
If you actually really see the way the courses are structured, they're not it's a range where you can shoot and actually trust and have confidence within the ability.
Yeah,
and build
it's low pressure. I mean, that to me is what are we expecting? Like, is it going to be regimented? We got military guys. It's going to be regimented. But it's like, no, it was like low pressure, and I appreciate that because I've shot at one of your competitors. When I bought that rifle, I went up to Cody. I shot the 2-day course, and they gave a safety briefing. The next thing you know, we're running lead down range like immediately, and like that wasn't the script today, right? It was get to know your system, get to know. There wasn't education. It was, here, we're going to burn the tile, we're going to set the dial, you're going to shoot, and you're going to shoot 1,000 yards within an hour, and you're like, this is so awesome, which it's cool to shoot 1,000 yards, but I've learned more about my system today that I have than I learned from the manufacturer that I purchased it from.
Okay,
right?
That's cool.
It just, so you're right. I mean, training is important, but I think if you get the right training,
You definitely want to vet the trainer, make sure they're doing a good comprehensive course. But I just like to throw that out there. Training is important. When guys ask me what's the next thing I should buy, training is always my answer. Go find a viable trainer. If you can't find one, we've got one. If you can't come here, we'll come to you. Like that's the big deal.
Help us help you, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think too, and you guys are obviously experienced shooters. You're not right out of the gate. So, in that first phase or that first portion when we're helping you tune your equipment in, we're getting to know you as well, and we're kind of modifying our training around where your guys are already at, right? So everyone's experience may be a little bit different. So we'll kind of start
that,
where
right?
you need to, right?
Yeah.
And we felt that. I definitely did.
Yeah, I noticed that for sure.
Well, you guys kind of told us at the gate, like, you guys have good setup. Like, we're not spending 2 hours on setup. Like, you guys have that. Well, I didn't have a good setup to start, but I was a quick learner, and I took the training that you guys get. And you had to remind me a few times, like, hey, dude, your setup's terrible. Like, okay. And that's probably why I made a bad shot, right? So that constant tutelage for me is important because, I'm human, and we fall back into our old habits, right?
So we're going back to what is learned comfort, and we're trying to, you basically got to evaluate where proper comfort or a more effective form of comfort.
Sure. So I guess the last thing, are we going to earn new nicknames tomorrow? Is that part of how this class works? Or
Every day's a new opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
I hope so.
Every day's a new opportunity.
Somebody wants out of their S squared.
Can I be long stroke?
No.
I'm not sure what that'll take. I think Travis is taking the cake on that one, breaking bolt actions.
Several times.
I don't need this one. Well, no, I'm glad to be here. It's cool to be here. It's good to be out of California. We'll just say that. It's like right when we got the Nevada line, it was like,
Oh, yeah.
it was like
The air
just
smelled different.
The diaphragm just like empty.
Back to America.
Like today, like we had this class, and the next thing you know, like this Ford shows up and has this complete spread for lunch.
Oh,
It's like
yeah,
I haven't
speaking
ate
of
this good, and like. I'm single, so I cook for myself, right? It's peanut butter and jelly and maybe eggs if I'm lucky, but it's like just the whole experience has been awesome, right? I mean, from meeting you guys, getting your instruction, to the lunch, to obviously being here with friends, like, it's just been an awesome experience.
Well, and I know we had the option to sign up for a 1-day or a 2-day course. I'm sure we'll learn plenty more tomorrow, but I'm just really not done shooting either. So do the 2-day course.
Who cares about ammo shortage? We'll find the ammo. Right?
Figure something out.
There's a way.
And, I'm glad you brought up the food, because we have to give a shout out. It was your mom, right?
Yeah, my mom.
It was a
made it.
home-cooked meal. We're sitting here thinking, man, peanut butter and jelly, like,
Pizza.
Lucas
Where are you
mentioned
going to get pizza
cold
around
pizza.
here?
and
point.
Of course, our instructor's mother shows up with this home-cooked lunch, and your dad as well, I suppose. And man, it was amazing.
Stepdad.
Yeah, stepfather. Okay. And it was a great experience. That really added to the experience right there.
And he's more known affectionately as Grumpy Fucker.
I noticed that.
I wasn't going to say it.
Adios, grumpy fucker.
It's funny how all roads lead to politics, and they're like, okay, I like this guy now. I really like this guy.
You guys are all right, Californians.
I saw your license plates. You ought to take them plates off when you come. Well, trust me.
He's a recovering Californian.
Yeah, as you said. We only got flipped off like 10 times on the way up here, so, it's all good.
Well, as much as, and we're super happy that you guys had fun, right? Like, that's what we were trying to do, give you some education, but just know we had a good time with you guys as well. Like, it's great to get to know you guys. You guys are awesome. Welcome up here anytime. So thank you for sharing that time with us.
Well, and just another note, it's so easy to come into an experience like this feeling tense, intimidated, wanting to be cocky. You don't want, it never feels good to get corrected, right? It felt good. Felt good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
And open the bolt all the way.
Don't show it.
you may never live this down, Kyle. I'm sorry.
The problem with the podcast is you can't see the look on my face.
To kind of go back to what Aaron was talking about, the training, there's a lot of options you do have out there for training, but one difference is these are only private lessons. So every training module is actually structured to your needs as an individual. So, that's the kind of the one difference we're actually being able to put out there is this is designed to what you need to be successful.
Yeah.
So we're not just you're showing up with friends. You're not showing up with a class
People you don't know.
and you're trying to make a system work. And so you have that insecurities. Now you're dealing with insecurities, dealing with people. Now you're out here knowing people, you're here working and doing and performing with people you know and trust. And that's the only thing we offer. We don't offer large group setting classes.
Yeah, we cap it at 2 shooters per instructor.
We were extremely excited to find out it was just going to be us.
We didn't know that. Like, we're like going in, like, is there going to be other people we don't know? But like,
No, it's
knowing,
completely
like,
private
I've had
lessons.
trigger time with these guys. Like, I trust these guys, right, in a range, and that's important. Like, just having that piece of kind of, peace of mind, if you will, and knowing that, that's huge.
Yeah,
right?
you're not on a firing line with Arlie Ermy pacing around behind you.
Yeah, it's literally it's structured for you as an individual as a shooter. So
Yep.
that's what we're really. You can go to anyone you want, and if after you've vet them, go to them. If you think in game, what we're gaining to you, what we're trying to do to basically distinguish ourselves. You're getting a unique one only option on the market with a rifle, and that's the training. The training is actually you got to handpick every aspect of that rifle is yours. Correct. Everything on that rifle is what you specifically requested, and that's really where the training structure as well is. You're getting exactly what you want.
Right.
So
we felt it.
Yeah. And I think that's an important key. And obviously you're coming here to learn how to shoot long range. That's kind of the idea of the school. But yeah, we will structure it to any specific need that you guys have. Anyone has, right?
Yep. Awesome day.
Yep. I'm
Awesome
looking
day.
forward
Can't
to day
thank you
2,
enough.
and looking forward to day 2, and heck, we're only halfway through, so tomorrow is another day. It's another day of nicknames.
Definitely bring eye drops tomorrow.
Jeez, right? Hopefully, well, we thought it was going to be raining, and we did.
got some hail even.
Yeah, we did escape that, but the wind is, sometimes I'd rather take rain than that wind and that dust storm that we had.
We was
but
actually relieved to get the rain
Yeah.
by the time that dust storm was blowing through.
can't control Mother Nature, as we know. So anyway, just again from our perspective, appreciate your guys' time with us, taking time out of your obviously busy days, and kind of giving us some training and some tutelage and making us more proficient and better shooters. I think at the end of the day, we can go home and we can put these skills to use, right? So that's, to me, that's what this is all about. So appreciate what you guys are doing, and look forward to another day tomorrow. So
Appreciate it. We'll look forward to having you out again.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right. Thank you. We'll catch you tomorrow. Hey, listeners. This is Lucas Paw, host of the RNA Outdoors podcast. Check out our website at rnaoutdoors.com to find all of our podcast platforms. Go listen today where you podcast. Additionally, leave a review and a 5-star rating. These reviews help boost our popularity and outreach. You can also follow us on our social media outlets, Instagram at Rod and Arrow Outdoors, Facebook, RNA Outdoors, and YouTube, RNA Outdoors. All links are in the show notes as well. We hope you'll pass along our channel to your friends and colleagues. Subscribe today and follow along on the journey.
Travis wants that microphone right down his throat.
Ooh,
I'm a knuckle dragon mouth breather, so I like to keep a little farther away so you don't get all the
something about short stroke today. That might come out. I don't know. Just saying.
And you know what? I can't use the excuse of shooting a full Magnum cartridge because I did it on the creek board.
Yeah. So we're not on the air. How many times did that happen? Just
3.
okay.
And a half. 3 and a half.
3.5 or 3
Plus the mag dump.
that was witnessed.
Right.
That's true. Witnessed.
Hey man, it was a little rough start to the day for me.
That was a good little technique check,
Let's,
though, right?
maybe leave
Because
that
when
part
you
out,
think
though.
the gun's going to go off and then it dry fires and you don't flinch, that's a good sign.
That was a good
You know
thing.
what? It was, yeah.
That's why I didn't tell you the second
But then
time.
the next 2 times were not really necessary. So.
Man, what did I miss?
They were entertaining.
Dude, you should have seen that windstorm out today.
I gained a
That
nickname.
was unbelievable.
For real deal. I think I'm going to be picking big old dirt boogers out of my nose for the next week.
I already did that there in Ryan's back seat.
What'd you do in his back seat?
He left
Picked up the dirt
Okay.
boogers.
No short stroking in the back seat.
What about hard stroking?
Just starch in the pants, that's all.
Starch in the pants. Aaron's openly gay school of shooting.
Hey, you're the left-hander here, dude.
I'm correct-handed.
Oh, wait. Right. Oh, Lucas is left-handed, too.
Lucas is left-handed too.
It's okay.
So he had to suffer through that.
God made people left-handed just so all the right-handers would feel sorry for us.
Well, you guys are in luck. My dad's a lefty, and so I had to build him a rifle, and that
Right.
means you guys get lefties, too.
Right?
Hey, I'm totally good with that.
Hurry the fuck up.
Hopefully you're recording all this. We'll just start it off.
You know, I was working on a Saturday.
Yeah,
just
I think
so
I noticed which
range
button to
days.
get that.
AllTerra range days.
They just got, well, this one here just says shooting course.
I like AllTerra range days. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Not that I have a say in it.
I think you should call it Fun in the Desert with Travis, clothing optional.
Fun in the Sahara Desert, right? Dust storm.
Right? And
Well,
then
I
once
want him to go before me. I'm just going to play off him.
okay.
It's just going to play off of me.
Well, then you have to switch seats,
That
dude.
could get really interesting.
Or Travis can sit on your lap.
He can.
Yeah.
No.
Always welcome. Always welcome. Let me
Is
clear
that
your
your gun digging into my hip, or are you just excited to see me?
You're
in a cigar shop.
Thanks, Lois.
How was the show? Okay.
We got through it.